He thought she was just a poor, crippled beggar. He fed her every day with his little food. But one morning, everything changed. Who was this woman? Why did she choose him? And what secret had she been hiding all along? Sit back and find out as we dive into this shocking and heart-touching story. This is the story of a poor young man named Daniel and a crippled beggar everyone ignored. Daniel was a young man just 26 years old. He sold food in a small wooden kiosk by the roadside in Abuja. His stall was made of old planks and zinc sheets. It stood under a big baobab tree where many people came to eat. Daniel didn't have much. His sandals were worn out and his shirt had patches, but he was always cheerful. Even when he was exhausted, he greeted people warmly. "Good morning, madam." "You're welcome," he would say to every customer. He woke up very early each morning to cook jollof rice, beans, and plantain porridge. His hands worked fast, but his heart was heavy with worry. Daniel had no family. His parents died when he was young. He lived in a small room not far from his kiosk. No electricity, no running water, just him and his hopes. One afternoon, as Daniel cleaned his serving area, his friend Baba Suli walked by. "Daniel," Baba Suli said, "why are you always laughing when you are struggling just like every one of us?" Daniel smiled again and replied, "Because crying will not put money in my pocket." Baba Suli chuckled and walked away, but his words stayed in Daniel's mind. It was true. He had nothing, but he still gave people something to eat even when they couldn't pay. He didn't know his life was about to change. Every afternoon, something strange happened at Daniel's kiosk. A crippled beggar would appear from the corner of the street. She always came slowly, pushing her old wheelchair with her hands. The wheels made a rough sound on the concrete. Screech, screech, screech. People passing by would laugh or turn away. "Look at this dirty woman again," one girl said. The woman's legs were wrapped in dirty bandages. Her wrapper was torn at the edges. Her face was covered with dust. Her eyes looked weary. Some people said she smelled. Others said she was mentally ill, but Daniel never looked away. He called her Mama Grace. That afternoon, as the sun blazed hot above, Mama Grace pushed her wheelchair and stopped beside his kiosk. Daniel looked at her and said softly, "You're here again, Mama Grace. You didn't eat yesterday." Mama Grace looked down. Her voice was weak. "I was too sick to come," she said. "I have not eaten in 3 days." Daniel looked at his table. Only one plate of jollof rice and chicken was left. That was the food he planned to eat himself. He paused for a moment. Then, without a word, he picked up the plate and placed it in front of her. "Here, eat," he said. Mama Grace looked at the food, then at him. "You're giving me your last plate again?" Daniel nodded. "I can cook again when I get home." Her hands trembled as she took the spoon. Her eyes looked moist, but she didn't cry. She just bent her head and started to eat slowly. People walking by stared at them. "Daniel, why do you always feed that beggar?" a man asked. Daniel smiled and replied, "If I was the one sitting there in a wheelchair, wouldn't I want someone to help me too?" Mama Grace came every day, but she never begged with her voice. She didn't call out to people. She didn't stretch out her hands. She didn't ask for food or money. She would always sit quietly in her wheelchair beside Daniel's wooden kiosk. Her head always faced down. Her hands rested on her lap. Her wheelchair looked like it would collapse any moment. One of the wheels was completely bent while others ignored her. Daniel always brought her a plate of hot food. Sometimes it was rice. Sometimes it was beans and plantain. He gave it with genuine care. It was a hot afternoon. Daniel had just finished serving fried rice to 3 office workers when he looked up and saw Mama Grace again, sitting quietly in her usual spot. Her legs were still wrapped in old cloth. Her blouse had more tears now, but she just sat there like always, saying nothing. Daniel smiled and scooped hot fried rice into a plate. He added 2 pieces of fish and walked over to her. "Mama Grace," he said gently, "your food is ready." Mama Grace looked up slowly. Her eyes were tired. But when she saw Daniel, they softened. "You always remember me," she said. Daniel knelt and placed the food gently on the small table beside her. "Even if the whole world forgets you," he said, "I won't." Just then, a big white Mercedes drove up and stopped right in front of his kiosk. The door opened slowly and a woman stepped out. She was wearing an elegant blue dress and matching head wrap. Her shoes looked expensive, like someone had just bought them. She was tall and graceful with sharp eyes. Daniel stood up quickly and wiped his hands on his apron. "Wait! Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, smash that like button right now. You won't believe what happens next." "Good afternoon, Ma," he said. "Good afternoon," the woman replied. But her eyes were not on him. She was looking at Mama Grace. The woman didn't blink. She just stared at her for a long time. Mama Grace kept eating, but Daniel noticed something strange. She had stopped chewing. The woman took a step closer and tilted her head like she was trying to recognize something. She turned to him and said, "Please give me 1 plate of jollof rice. Add fish." Daniel quickly served the food and handed it to her. But as she took the food, she looked back at Mama Grace one more time. This time, her eyes looked confused. She entered the car without a word and drove off. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. He swept in front of his food kiosk and cleaned his wooden table like always. As the sun rose, he kept looking down the road. "Any moment now," he whispered. "Mama Grace will come." But hours passed. No wheelchair, no Mama Grace. By noon, his heart began to race. He walked to the side of the kiosk and looked down both ends of the street. "Where is she?" he asked himself. He asked Mama Kemi, the woman selling fruits nearby. "Sister, did you see Mama Grace today?" Mama Kemi laughed and waved her hand. "That old woman? Maybe she crawled to another area. She can't walk anyway." Daniel didn't laugh. He asked 2 boys selling pure water, "Have you seen the old woman in a wheelchair?" They shook their heads. He even asked the motorcycle taxi rider who parked nearby, "Oga, did you see Mama Grace this morning?" The man spat on the ground and said, "Maybe she's tired of sitting in one place, or maybe she's dead." Daniel's chest became tight. He sat beside his pot of rice and stared at the empty spot where Mama Grace always sat. His eyes didn't leave that space all day. 2 more days passed. Still no sign of Mama Grace. Daniel couldn't smile like before. He served customers, but his face looked worried. He couldn't eat much. Even the aroma of his delicious jollof rice made him feel sick. His thoughts kept going to Mama Grace. "Did something terrible happen to her?" he said quietly. At night, he sat alone in his small room behind the kiosk. He held the last plate he served her with and looked at it. "Mama Grace never misses a day," he said softly. "Even when it rains, even when she's weak, so why now?" He stood up, opened his small window, and looked out into the dark street. A cool breeze entered the room. His eyes filled with tears. He wasn't just worried, he was frightened. Something felt wrong, very wrong. And deep inside him, he knew Mama Grace was not just missing. Something had happened. Something big and maybe life-changing. It was the 4th day. Daniel was sitting quietly in his kiosk. He was chopping vegetables and setting his table like he did every morning. Steam rose from the fire as he boiled water for the rice. Just then, a white car stopped in front of his kiosk. A tall woman came down. She was wearing a bright yellow head wrap. Her shoes were polished and her clothes looked costly. Daniel had never seen her before. She didn't smile. She didn't greet him. She just walked up to his table and handed him a brown envelope. Daniel looked at it, confused. "What? What is this?" he asked, holding the envelope with both hands. The woman didn't answer. She just said, "Read it and don't tell anyone." Then she turned and walked back into the car. Before Daniel could say another word, The car drove away. He looked left. He looked right. Nobody else was watching. With shaking hands, he opened the envelope. Inside was one white paper. He opened the paper slowly. There were only a few words on it. Come to Transcorp Hilton Hotel by 5 p.m. Don't tell anyone. From a friend. Daniel stood still. His mouth opened a little, but no words came out. His hands began to shake. Transcorp Hilton Hotel, he said softly. But I've never been to such a big hotel before. He looked at the paper again. His heart was beating fast. Who sent this? What kind of friend? He looked down the road. The car was gone. He looked at the paper again. Daniel held the envelope to his chest. He looked at the sky. It was getting cloudy, but he knew one thing for sure. He had to go. At exactly 4:30 p.m., Daniel stood in front of his small kiosk. He looked at the padlock in his hand, took a deep breath, and closed the wooden door. He turned the key twice. God, please go with me, he whispered. He walked to the road and stopped a taxi. Transcorp Hilton Hotel, he told the driver. As they drove through the busy Abuja streets, Daniel held the brown envelope tightly in his hand. His heart was beating fast. He didn't know who sent the letter. He didn't know what would happen, but something inside him told him this was not an ordinary day. After some time, they reached the hotel entrance. Daniel looked up. The building was extremely tall with windows that sparkled like diamonds. The walls were pristine. The front door was massive and gleaming. Everything around him felt like a movie. 2 security men stood by the entrance. One of them wore dark sunglasses. He looked at Daniel and stepped forward. Good afternoon, sir, he said. Who are you here to see? Daniel opened his mouth slowly. I got this letter, he said, showing him the paper. It says I should come here. My name is Daniel. The guard took the paper, looked at it, then smiled. Oh, Daniel, someone is waiting for you inside, he said. You can go in. Right away, a man in a black suit came out from the glass door. He walked to Daniel. He didn't say much. Come with me, please, he said, and began walking back inside. Daniel followed him. His legs felt weak, but he kept moving. The man in black led him through a long corridor. Then he stopped at a tall wooden door. He turned to him and said, Someone is waiting inside. Daniel's heart beat louder. He looked at the door. Then he looked at the man. Can I go in now? He asked. The man nodded, yes. Just go in. You're safe. Daniel took one deep breath. Then he pushed the door open. His eyes went straight to the woman sitting in a wheelchair in the middle of the room. He froze. His mouth opened. His hands began to shake. Mama Grace, he said, holding his chest. Hold up! If this story is giving you chills, subscribe right now and hit that notification bell, because what Daniel discovers next will blow your mind. Don't miss the shocking twist coming up. But this woman didn't look like the poor woman who used to sit beside his kiosk. Her hair was beautifully styled. Her face was glowing. She wore an elegant white dress with gold jewelry. An expensive wristwatch was on her wrist. She was still sitting in a wheelchair, but it looked different. Modern and sophisticated. She didn't look weak or tired. She looked calm and powerful. She gave him a warm smile. Daniel, she said softly. Come in. Daniel couldn't move at first. His heart was beating fast. He looked at her again. Mama Grace, is this really you? He asked. The woman looked into his eyes. Yes, Daniel. It's me. She pointed to the chair across from her. Please sit, she said kindly. Daniel slowly sat down, still looking at her like he was dreaming. My name is not Mama Grace, she said gently. Daniel blinked. It's not? She nodded. My real name is Chief Ruth Williams. I am a billionaire. Daniel put both hands on his knees. He stared at her, shocked. A billionaire? He asked in a low voice. What would you do if a beggar you've been feeding suddenly revealed they were a billionaire? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This story is about to get even more shocking. Chief Ruth nodded. Yes, I own many businesses. I have built factories, schools, and hospitals. I've made enormous wealth over the years." Daniel looked confused. "But why did you pretend to be poor?" She smiled again, but this time her eyes looked serious. "I wanted to see the real heart of people. I got tired of people helping only when they think someone is watching. I wanted to meet someone who helps just because it's the right thing to do." Daniel's eyes became wet. "You gave me food," she continued. "You gave it with love. You never asked me for anything. You didn't laugh at me or walk away." She looked at him kindly. "That is why you are here. Every year I choose 5 people who show true kindness. I help them become millionaires. Because people like you can help others too." Daniel was still in shock, thinking about all that Chief Ruth had told him. Chief Ruth gave a small smile. Then slowly she placed both hands on the arms of the wheelchair. Daniel leaned forward watching her, and then she stood up. His eyes opened wide. His mouth fell open. You can walk?" he asked in shock. Pause. Are you still watching? If this twist shocked you, give this video a thumbs up and tell me in the comments. Did you see this coming? The story gets even more incredible. Chief Ruth nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "I can walk." Daniel leaned back, still looking at her like he had seen a spirit. "But why sit in a wheelchair all this time?" he asked. She looked into his eyes and replied, "I wanted to see if anyone would still care for me. Even when I looked broken, I wanted to know who had a good heart." Daniel's lips began to shake. His eyes became wet. A tear dropped. "Ma," he said in a low voice, "I didn't help you because I wanted anything. I didn't know you were rich. I just felt it was the right thing to do." Chief Ruth smiled again and walked closer. "That's exactly why I chose you," she said. Chief Ruth stood quietly for a moment, looking at Daniel with kind eyes. Then she said, "Daniel, follow me. There's a place I want to show you." He looked up surprised. "A place?" "Yes," she said with a smile. "I want to show you something. It's part of your reward. You have a good heart and people like you deserve good things." Daniel stood up slowly. "Okay," he said, his voice calm but uncertain. Chief Ruth turned and opened the door. Daniel followed her. The hallway was quiet. 2 men in black suits were already waiting outside the door. They nodded at Chief Ruth and walked behind them. Daniel looked around. Everything still felt like a dream. When they stepped outside, his mouth opened wide. 5 big black SUVs were lined up in the parking area. They looked shiny like mirrors. Big men in black suits stood beside each one. Chief Ruth walked straight to the first car. One of the men opened the door for her. Daniel stood still, amazed. Chief Ruth looked back and smiled. "Come in, Daniel." He took a deep breath and slowly entered the car. As soon as the door closed, the other cars followed behind. The convoy of 5 SUVs moved out of the hotel gate like something out of a movie. Daniel sat quietly, his heart beating fast. Where was she taking him? And what was she about to show him? The cars moved slowly through the city. Daniel sat beside Chief Ruth, looking out the window. He saw busy people walking, shops open, buses moving, but his mind was full of questions. Where were they going? After about 45 minutes, the cars turned into a clean, quiet road. The buildings here looked new and impressive. Glass walls, shining signboards, fresh paint everywhere. Then the cars stopped. Chief Ruth opened the door and stepped out. A guard quickly opened Daniel's door too. "Come," Chief Ruth said, smiling. Then his eyes stopped. Right in front of him was a very big and beautiful building. It was not just a restaurant. It was a multi-million-naira luxury food complex, the kind of place where only wealthy people come to eat. It stood alone, wide and tall, with glass windows that stretched from top to bottom. The walls were cream and smooth like marble. The doors had shiny gold handles. There were beautiful flowers at the entrance. Daniel's mouth opened. He had never seen anything like this in his life. But what shocked him the most was the signboard. It said, "Daniel's Kitchen, home of exceptional meals." Daniel took a step back. He looked at the sign again to be sure his eyes were not playing tricks. Is this real? He asked in a low voice. Chief Ruth nodded gently. Yes, it's yours. Mine? He whispered. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a bunch of keys, stretched it towards Daniel, and pointed at the door. Go inside. Daniel collected the keys and walked slowly to the door. His hands were shaking. He opened it. What he saw inside made him cover his mouth. The floor was gleaming. The chairs were big and comfortable. The tables looked like they were made from glass and gold. There were lights on the ceiling that looked like stars. The air smelled fresh. Everything was new and perfect. There was a massive kitchen at the back. Inside, he saw gas cookers, clean pots, industrial freezers, refrigerators, and even uniforms for workers. He turned slowly to look at Chief Ruth. His eyes were full of tears. You bought all this for me? Chief Ruth walked in and stood beside him. Yes, she said softly. You fed me with your small money when you had nothing. Now I want to give you a place where presidents and governors will come to eat. You will never struggle again. Daniel dropped to his knees. His hands covered his face. He was crying, but they were happy tears. I don't know what to say, he said. I'm getting emotional just telling this story. If you believe kindness always comes back, type kindness wins in the comments right now. And make sure you're subscribed because we're about to see how Daniel's life completely transforms. You don't need to say anything, Chief Ruth replied. Your kindness already spoke for you. From that day, Daniel became the owner of a big food plaza in Abuja. It was not like his small roadside kiosk anymore. This place was magnificent. The floors were shiny. The walls had fine lights. The chairs were soft and clean. Music played softly in the background. People felt luxury once they stepped in. He didn't cook anymore. He didn't serve food. Professional chefs handled the kitchen. They wore white coats and hats. Waiters wore fine uniforms and smiled as they served food. Daniel just sat in his office upstairs. His name was on the door. His picture was on the wall. Everyone respected him. But even with all the money, comfort, and fame, he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot Mama Grace. And he never forgot how kindness changed his life. One morning, his manager walked into his office. Oga, he said, the food truck is ready. Daniel stood up. Let's go, he said. Outside the restaurant, a big white van was waiting. On the side of the van was a name, Daniel's Food Care, feeding the hungry. Daniel had started a charity. Every week, his food trucks went around the city. They gave free food to poor people under the bridges, near bus stops, around markets. People lined up with smiles. Some had no shoes. Some were children. Some were old women. Daniel walked to each one and handed them warm food. He said, Eat well. You are not forgotten. One of his workers whispered, Oga, why do you do this? Daniel looked up slowly. He touched his chest softly. Kindness brought me here, so I must send kindness out again. The worker nodded quietly, and as they all watched the people eat and smile, the sun shone gently on Daniel's face. He looked up at the sky and whispered, Thank you, Chief Ruth. Thank you for seeing me. Then he turned, walked back to the van, and drove off to feed the next street. His life had changed forever, but his heart stayed the same. This is why I love sharing these stories. If this touched your soul, smash that like button and share this with everyone you know. Someone needs to hear this message today. This story teaches us one powerful lesson. Kindness is never wasted. You may not have much, but when you give from a pure heart, your reward will find you when you least expect it. What did this story teach you? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. I would really love to read from you. And guess what? There's another very interesting story coming in a few days. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it drops. Before you go, I need to ask you something. Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return? Share your story in the comments. Your kindness could inspire someone else. If you enjoyed this story, please please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Someone out there might need to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your time and support. See you in the next story.